Thank you very much, Charles. That was very informative. And I think tying together with Arun, and if Arun can join us for the Q&A session, that'd be appreciated. But I think it's really highlighted, and going back to the very first presentation with Abhishek, that communication with and between all the stakeholders is very, very important. And one of the last sort of topics that Charles sort of covered is this interaction between certification, the installation, the testing, the maintenance. That gives us quite a few stakeholders all doing individual jobs that all have an important role to play in making sure safety within the building. And I think one of the big concerns I've had for a long time, and this is not just in this region, it's a global, is there is still very much a tick in the box culture whereby people just want to tick the box and move on and don't have any thought to the other sort of inputs required from the stakeholders. But I'll move straight on to questions. I'm going to start with one from Terry Johnson. This is to Arun. It's, do you not agree that until we get certified third-party inspection backed up by insurance, we are on a dangerous road? Insurance has to play its part because it can control costs pre-fire loss claims.
I agree, Terry. This is what I've understood from some of the parties that I've met elsewhere is that in the more developed markets, insurance plays a good role in fire safety, whether it be US or Australia. While here we are still kind of out of the mix, as you could see here. One of the reasons Peter said that he wanted me to come in was so that you could have an insurance perspective. And I agree with you. I think there is a huge scope for improving the current fire systems that are already installed using third-party inspections. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Can I just sort of follow that up? Actually, this is one of my sort of thoughts and questions just in relation to that. You may be aware that there's a new, it came out in 2019, British Standard 9997, which specifically deals with fire risk management systems, and there will be a certification process for that. Do you envisage that or similar schemes been adopted locally, just for the stakeholders of buildings to actually demonstrate that they do understand their systems and the safety requirements?
I'm sorry, Peter, I couldn't hear you clearly. You were getting cut.
Oh, sorry. It was in relation to BS 9997, fire risk management systems. It's a new standard come out. Do you see that type of system been adopted for clients to demonstrate their knowledge of the systems, etc.?
No, I have not come across any client which has adopted that particular system yet. A lot of the certifications that are generally involved here relate to ISO standards, be it the OSHA's, which has moved from 18,000 to 45,001. The entire issue lies with fire safety as such not being an awareness with the client. I think they have been used to a long set of years where they've not had any issues. They've been able to pass all the requirements which have been set up by the government, and things have become lax, at least from a client perspective. I feel the client is supposed to be responsible for this. No, but yeah, I have not seen this come up yet.
Okay. There was a question came in from Fahad in relation to qualifications for assessors. As a risk engineer, must you obtain certain qualifications or certification prior to assisting building owners?
Yes, if we were to do an official, from an official standpoint, if we were to assist building owners, it would always be good to have a set of, say, for example, NFPA certifications, like a certified fire specialist certification. Currently, what I've seen in the market, and Peter knows too, because we run a risk engineering forum, which has a lot of my colleagues who attend. There is no standard for risk assessors, at least from an insurance side. There is no particular standard or education requirements that have come in. So this is something which I think needs to be improved. If we were to go and help building owners directly from an official standpoint,
Okay, that's interesting, and maybe one to bring Charles into the conversation. It was interesting that you you highlighted different types of sprinkler heads on site. With regards to certification process, how would you deem that to impact on the overall sort of performance of the system, Charles, and the actual approval process?
Well, from our perspective, at least here on Intertech side, we've always operated from not necessarily the passive fire protection side of the business, but more so from the envelope process. When it comes to the passive fire protection, I wouldn't be able to speak with any authority on that, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. We've got a couple of, they're not actually questions, but it would be very useful maybe for Arun to touch base with Sajid Raza after the end. Maybe if you can stay on for the networking, that'd be a very good opportunity to touch base. It sort of led on from an observation from it was to do with the insurance requirements. So Sajid has actually posted a series of UAE cabinet resolutions that make requirements on insurance companies. So it's more of an informative type of thing. So it's quite good for you two to connect after the event, because I know Sajid has got a lot of knowledge within the industry. When you go inspecting, Arun, do you get I mentioned it, I'm very passionate about making sure we do have good, robust fire strategies in place for buildings. Do you get visibility of fire strategies when you visit buildings?
One of the aspects that we look at is the fire strategy that the client has, whether they have an emergency response plan and whether they do any drills concerning this. I would say previously I've been to a lot of places where they do these things in passing. The amount of effort put into it could be definitely more than what they have been putting in at that point, because the entire issue or the reason why we train and do drills is so that during an emergency, you don't have to actually process the information and then make a decision. You would understand what the situation is and you're able to react accordingly because of your prior training. I have seen many places here where the fire strategies are quite poor, even in high-rise buildings, because one of the most difficult places to evacuate would be a high-rise building, compared to, say, for example, a warehouse or a factory, which generally has multiple exits, usually just ground floor. They can just step out of the premises quite easily, while evacuating a large, a high-rise or ultra high-rise is a task on its own. So I've seen that they've not really, the many places which I think has a lot of improvements that could be done.
Yeah, and similarly with sort of the building fire risk assessment, do you get visit? Are many conducted in the market here?
So we generally conduct for the businesses who come to us requiring an insurance quote, or if we are already insuring these clients. We are quite selective about how we pick our businesses. We have certain group guidelines within us that these have to be met, without which we will not insure a property. So there is a tendency for us to pick the better of the lot, because we don't really have the time to sit and improve the risk and then pick it up.
Okay. And there was an observation from Tim Young from the audience with regard to the use of QR codes on pumps. Is that a common thing you see on site?
No, Tim. So the thing is, if at all these are new standards that have come across in the last 2 years, I think it's probably trickling down here because there has been the pandemic and the stop that has happened in between. So as of yet, I have not come across any site which has QR codes attached to the fire pumps.
Okay, no problem. And just sort of going back, thinking out loud with regard to the things we see, Dubai is really a hub of international sort of business development, and we see a lot of innovation, and quite often codes can't catch up with innovation, that they don't respond quick enough. And maybe, again, with, for Charles, for testing and certification for innovative products that are good, trying to get to the market, what's the sort of the quickest turnaround time that we could, sometimes there might not be a standard developed for a particular product. Do you see that as a big issue in the market at the moment?
Yes, it is a big issue from a compliance standpoint. Recognition within, the International Building Code is on a 3-year cycle and isn't necessarily caught up to the evolution of today's market, which makes, implementation of certain products within building space extremely difficult. It is, at least here in North America, it is up to the HJ to determine compliance, to make that determination on site, whether or not they feel comfortable with allowances of occupancy in the building in those areas. But we try to advise as best as we can to standards that we feel are representative to a product, maybe haven't quite caught up of any potential testing methods that can show potential compliance, even though there may not be a formal standard in place, something that can demonstrate to give confidence to an AHJ to make that final determination, knowing that they do have the discretion to ultimately decide depending on whether or not they feel comfortable at the end of the day.
Okay, that's good. And similar sort of viewpoint for Arun. Would you prefer to see a new product that its performance through test, etc., is very robust and can bring additional safety features to a building, actually installed prior to the formal testing and certification regime catching up with the product?
Now, this is a bit of a doozy because what happens is, different companies, different insurance companies have their own standards on how they would insure a risk. And generally, prototypes are always looked upon with a little bit of disdain, whether it be building construction or, machinery. So, it's a slow-moving machinery, the insurance industry. It's very large. It's a lot of information to be processed. So if it were to come, I think they would find it a little difficult to get things insured.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm very conscious of time, so at this point, I'd like to invite Philip back to the stage and thank both Charles and Arun for their input and the earlier speakers today. And I would encourage connectivity on the networking platform after the event, and I'll kindly hand over to Philip. Thank you.